The Force is emerging in Rey, who seeks guidance from the legendary Jedi Master Luke Skywalker. Her will to learn the ways of the Jedi is equally strong to his desire to keep hidden from the world. On the dark side of it all, Kylo Ren and General Hux lead the First Order, under Supreme Leader Snoke's rule, into a vicious offense against General Leia's resistance. Leia counts on a few vital allies: Commander Poe Dameron, the fleet's major troublemaker pilot; Holdo, the fearless admiral; and a younger generation of resistance fighters. Luke Skywalker's decision will change the course of the galaxy's future, for better or for worse. General Leia's plan to escape is at full speed, but General Hux's First Order ships are getting closer. What Hux didn't expect was Commander Poe Dameron's cheeky move toward the First Order's fleet. Along with his cute right hand, BB-8, Poe finds a way to inflame General Hux's mood. Poe Dameron's attack on the Dreadnought doesn't bother Hux at first, who underestimates his power. However, Poe's intelligence overpowers Hux's ego. His tiny ship blends in easily, and his plan to shoot down Hux's cannons works. General Hux can't do anything about it without damaging his own Dreadnought. General Leia Organa commands Poe and BB-8 to return to the base, so the entire fleet can finally escape that doomed planet. But Poe's stubbornness is also another strong trait of his, and that pisses Leia off. The Resistance fleet gets to the front line of the battle, determined to destroy the First Order's weapon. It's not easy, but they have an ace up their sleeve, a payload ready to fire. Pilot Paige, the last bomber of the Resistance standing, has to drop the payload to end the Dreadnought for good. She accomplishes the arduous mission, but sadly it costs her life. The Dreadnought explodes into pieces, and all General Hux and the First Order can do is watch their embarrassing defeat. Now, it's time for Hux to explain himself to Supreme Leader Snoke, and Snoke is not happy. Poe Dameron and BB-8 are back at the Resistance base, and find Finn disoriented and looking for Rey, who's not there. Rey arrives at a remote island, where Jedi Master Luke Skywalker hides peacefully. She gives him his iconic lightsaber, expecting his gratitude, but he disappoints her as he throws the legendary weapon into the sea. Rey couldn't be more confused, and Luke couldn't be more annoyed. Although remote, Luke's island shelters some strange little creatures that seem to offer no harm. Rey doesn't give up on asking Luke Skywalker for help, arguing that she's there under the command of his sister, General Leia, who begs for his help against the First Order. Luke couldn't care less. So, the antidote to his denial is Chewbacca's foot in the door. Chewbacca and Rey explain to Luke that they got to the island on the Millennium Falcon, and Luke immediately asks about Han Solo. Back to the First Order's fleet, Supreme Leader Snoke assembles Kylo Ren, who is recovering from severe injuries. Snoke's intentions were clear. He intended to prepare Kylo Ren to become the new Darth Vader, but now he has his reservations. As proof of his loyalty and strength, Kylo Ren argues that, when the time came, he destroyed his own father, Han Solo. Snoke is not convinced, and now, Kylo Ren has to prove himself again. To blow off some steam, Kylo Ren takes out his anger on his helmet, that's turned into shreds. He's ready to bet all in on finding Rey and Luke, and bringing them to Snoke's nasty hands. Meanwhile, Rey's task to make Luke believe in himself again and join the Resistance is going terribly. Luke puts Rey to the most difficult tests on the island, hoping that she gives up on her idea, but little does he know that his efforts would be worthless. She's a stubborn young woman. For a short moment, Rey loses sight of her mission to rescue and bring Luke back, and is drawn to a dark cave that harbors ancient books. Luke has never felt so intrigued, and wonders who Rey really is. Now, Rey has to explain why the Resistance chose her to rescue him, and why she knows so much about the island. She begs Luke Skywalker for help and guidance, but Luke is relentless in refusing to train another Jedi. He refuses Leia's call for help, and Rey's plea for lessons. In the meantime, Poe Dameron faces Leia's rage, and worries for his safety due to his recklessness. She reprehends his thoughtless actions, fearing that he might get caught by the First Order, and that she'd end up losing her only viable successor. She believes in Poe's future as the leader of the Resistance. He can't be that careless. Somehow, Kylo Ren got to follow the Resistance fleet through light speed, which was considered impossible until now. Leia grants Poe permission to attack, but the hangar with the X-Wings is blown up by Ren. Kylo Ren is thirsty for revenge, but for a fleeting moment, Leia accesses the Force and connects to her son, who flinches for a few seconds. Leia believes her son might have changed, but the fleeting moment is gone and Kylo Ren fires at the Resistance's ship, throwing his mother out of it. Through the debris, Leia struggles to get back to the ship, and is carried by Force. Even after all this time, the Force is strong in her, but she fights to regain consciousness. It's nighttime on the island. Chewbacca tries to have a snack, but the Porgs don't let him, and Luke is reminded of his oath to keep the Resistance alive. Leia's message to Obi-Wan from long ago is played again as a reminder to Luke, and the reminder couldn't have come from a friendlier source. R2-D2 is back, to push Luke to do what's right. Luke Skywalker complies with the robot's efforts and immediately notifies Rey of her training. She's to be ready at dawn. Poe and the few members left of the Resistance have a new commander during Leia's absence, and to Poe's shock, it isn't him. Vice Admiral Holdo will lead the last 400 members and 3 ships left of the Resistance, and she's determined to thrive. To aggravate Poe's revolted reaction, Vice Admiral Holdo gives him a cold shoulder, a very cold one, and tells him that his impulsiveness and disregard for rules are the last things the Resistance needs right now. Holdo commands Poe to do the very thing he never managed to master: be patient and stay put. BB-8 has a bad feeling about that. Finn follows the rest of the crew and gets ready for the next fight, but in the midst of the hectic environment, he finds Rose Tico hiding and sobbing. She holds the necklace that belonged to her sister, Paige. Finn uses that moment to his advantage and tries to escape to look for Rey. Rose is rule-oriented and does whatever is necessary to keep Finn from running away, so she tases him. Finn's persuasive arguments get Rose's attention. She learns that the First Order is now able to track them through lightspeed, something that was unattainable until now. Their minds work at the same frequency, and they come to the conclusion that thanks to hyperspeed tech, the tracker could only be activated from the lead ship. The only viable way into Kylo's lead ship is through a tiny passage that Finn, as a former stormtrooper, knows very well. Finn can get them there, and Rose knows the ropes to deactivate the tracker, but they need a pilot to take them, so they go straight to the only pilot whose services were dismissed by Vice Admiral Holdo, the reckless and impulsive Poe Dameron. Poe has a moment of conflict as he looks at General Leia resting in a coma, and C-3PO states the obvious, as always, that Admiral Holdo won't like their idea. Poe calls Maz Kanata and seeks her advice on how to disable the tracker. She tells them the only way is to find the master codebreaker in Canto Bight. On the island, Rey and Ren have an astonishing moment of connection. They can see and speak with each other by using the Force. He demands she brings Luke to him, but she's unyielding. Luke interrupts their direct link to each other to finally give Rey's training a go. Like any rookie, at first, Rey's naivety and a bit of pretentiousness give Luke a hard time. He encourages her to reach out to the Force through the energy of all things that surround her, and through her feelings. It doesn't take long for Rey to reach out. She's a fast learner, and the Force is strong with her. However, as Luke said himself, the Force is not something a Jedi possesses. It doesn't fade away when the Jedi is gone. The Force is the balance between all things, between the powerful light, but also the powerful darkness. Rey must learn how to navigate through the Force and use it to her advantage, to the Resistance's advantage, and yet respect its might. Luke fears for his pupil. Once again, the Force binds Rey and Kylo together, but they still don't know why. Kylo is close to finding out where Rey and Luke are. The Force is also strong with him. Without Holdo noticing, Poe, Rose, Finn, and BB-8 sneak away from the Resistance lead ship and fly to Canto Bight in the hope of finding the Master Codebreaker, but Rose is reluctant. She knows very well how dangerous Canto Bight is. In Canto Bight, the world and everything in it are perfect. People are happy, wealthy, and entitled. The problems and sorrows of the galaxy don't break into the bright and flamboyant atmosphere of Canto Bight. Blending in will be challenging for them. Rose finds the courage to confide in Finn her sad memories from a childhood spent in Canto Bight. The heartfelt conversation is interrupted by BB-8 sharing good news. He's found the Master Codebreaker. Finn and Rose rush their way back into the casino, but before they reach the Codebreaker, security guards tase them down. They are now arrested. The mission is also tough on Rey, back on the island. She keeps training non-stop. A bell rings in her mind the moment she sees Luke's old lightsaber. That's the motivation she needs to carry on. Luke observes his eager student bouncing the saber around and fears she won't be strong enough to resist the dark side. Rey's first lesson is finished. Before Lesson 2 begins, Luke shares with Rey his regrets and tells her a cautionary tale, the story of how he failed Leia and Han Solo when took their son in to begin his Jedi training. Somehow, Luke believes that Ben Solo lost his way because of him. He blames himself for not being able to save his nephew from the powerful attraction of the dark side of the Force. It's Rey's time to share her thoughts, and she comes with strong arguments. She works on strengthening Luke's confidence again and tells him he didn't fail Ben Solo, but Ben Solo failed him. While Luke and Rey reach new grounds of their training, Finn and Rose are stuck in a Canto Bight prison cell and still haven't found the Codebreaker. On the other hand, they did find someone claiming to also be a Codebreaker. To prove he is the real deal, DJ breaks them free from jail. Halfway there, BB-8 knocks down the jail officers and impresses DJ. Backup arrives at the jail cells, but Rose and Finn are long gone. They end up at the stables, where kids and animals are kept as slaves. The duo hop on the back of a horse-like creature and sprint away. As expected, a swarm of guards chases them. They hit the edge of a cliff that they can't escape. A ship with blinding lights finds them. That's it, that's their end. Surprisingly enough, BB-8 comes out of the ship, along with DJ. Meanwhile, Poe is nowhere to be found, yet. In his chilly cave, Luke is conflicted, and finds the courage to use the Force and check in on his sister. The Force is, indeed, strong with these two. Before even opening her eyes, Leia calls out for Luke. At this point, the Force operates at its maximum with all of them. Luke connects to his sister, Rey and Kylo are tied in again. Rey confronts Kylo's reasons for wiping his dad off the face of the galaxy, but all Kylo does is distract her by talking about her weaknesses. Rey is inconsolable and furious. Kylo reveals that one night, Luke sensed Kylo's Force and tried to destroy him. That made the uncle and nephew become estranged. On a certain level, Kylo Ren was able to access Rey's weak spot, the parents she never knew. Rey falls down into a spiral of manipulation. In her most vulnerable state, Kylo offers his shoulder for her to cry on. They surrender to a brief moment of existential crisis, and the doubts and fears they share bind them together as they touch hands for the first time since they learned to use the Force as a way to connect. The touching moment ends when Luke sees the two of them together, united by the Force. He falls into despair and breaks them apart. Rey defies her master and pulls him into a fight. She believes he is the reason why there's a Kylo Ren, because he doubted his nephew instead of staying by his side to show him the ways of the Jedi. Luke doesn't think it's still possible to turn Kylo Ren back to Ben Solo. For him, Snoke's claws are all over Kylo, and it has been this way for a long time. It's Luke Skywalker's time for vulnerability, and that's when his unforgettable Master Yoda shows up. Luke tries to go inside the ancient tree where the Jedi books are kept, but Master Yoda burns it. The grunty Yoda pours some wisdom into Luke's cup. After all this time, Luke's still a student in Yoda's eyes. Luke has his eyes open to the fact that he'll have to pass on to Rey everything he knows about being a Jedi. To Yoda, she is supposed to continue the Jedi legacy. Finn has his principles and morals tested by DJ's lack of honesty and bluntness. Poe communicates with Finn, who needs to hurry back to the fleet. Poe and Admiral Holdo are confronting each other over the decision whether to face the dreadnought head-on or not. DJ is their last hope to invade Kylo's ship that now has an unexpected guest. Rey is welcomed by Kylo and the stormtroopers and is held prisoner in his ship, while Poe Dameron briefs Admiral Holdo on Finn and Rose's plan to sneak into Kylo's ship and disable the hyperspeed tracker. Holdo is against the plan, and, presuming she would be, Poe and a few crew members prepare to hold a mutiny to relieve Holdo of her duties. For the first time in this storyline, Rey and Kylo are together in the same place. The seesaw of manipulative attempts from both sides continues. Rey argues it's not too late for Kylo to embrace the Force once and for all. Kylo makes crystal clear that he senses Rey's inner conflict between the Force and the dark side. He tries to persuade her that she ought to choose the dark side of the Force. Rey is taken to Supreme Leader Snoke, who has terrible plans for the warrior. Up to this point, DJ has exceeded Finn and Rose's expectations of betrayal, and still works alongside them. They arrive at the bay where the tracker is kept, and DJ is supposed to open it. Poe, back at the Resistance's fleet, and Finn, in Kylo's ship, are running out of time. Finn has to disable the tracker now, so Poe can lead the Resistance away from Snoke and Kylo's sight. But the stormtroopers are getting close to Finn, Rose, DJ, and BB-8. That means that Resistance is in ultimate danger of decimation. An old face emerges from the smoke that traps Finn and his team, Captain Phasma, the cruel stormtrooper commander. Now, even BB-8 has an adversary to combat, BB-9E, his evil twin. Poe understands that they were caught by Phasma and sadly, won't make it. To make everything harder for him, Poe has the commander's bridge invaded by a remarkable force and fears for his life. And so he should. General Leia Organa is back, and she's outraged by his mutiny, but, without him knowing it, she's also really proud of his strength and leadership. General Leia discusses with Admiral Holdo the next steps to save what's left of the Resistance, and to lead an attack against the Supreme Leader. However, she learns that Holdo plans to stay in the cruiser, so Leia has a chance to save the Resistance. The transports are packed with Resistance members, and they're ready to leave. Admiral Holdo bids a heartfelt farewell to General Leia. They're like-minded, and if there was any doubt about that, their emotional goodbye proves it. They say in one voice, "May the Force be with you, always." In his den, Snoke gives his villain's speech, trying to intimidate Rey, but she's headstrong. The unraveling of their conversation is astonishing. Snoke admits that he was the one who bridged Rey and Kylo's minds. He knew Kylo was conflicted between the Force and the dark side, and that Rey wouldn't be strong enough to resist the chance to bring him to her side. Poe wakes up from Leia's strike and learns that they're headed to Planet Crate, a rebel base, an uncharted safe haven for the Resistance. Phasma and Hux's captives, Finn and Rose, have their suspicions confirmed when DJ is awarded a ship and payment for disclosing the information he had on the Resistance's plan. Tension escalates on all sides. Admiral Holdo leads the cruiser to what should be the Resistance's last and most potent strike against the First Order. Rey is under the magnetism of Snoke and struggles with all her might to keep him out of her mind, and, therefore, from finding Luke Skywalker. Kylo Ren is quiet as a mouse. Snoke's trump card is now displayed. He senses Kylo Ren is ready to finally strike and defeat the enemy. He pulls Rey closer to Kylo as he picks up his neat lightsaber. Snoke narrates what's in Kylo's mind, and he is now ready to fulfill his destiny. Rey appeals to Ben, the side of Kylo she believes still belongs to the Force. Kylo Ren's resolve is printed on his face as he stares unflinchingly at Rey and states that he knows what he has to do. Snoke can't resist the excitement of his blind and conceited vanity as he narrates Kylo's move to strike his true enemy with the powerful lightsaber. His house of cards falls apart when Kylo trumps his final and exceptional card. He manipulates Luke Skywalker's lightsaber and blows a fatal strike at Snoke, who drops on the floor, defeated. Rey and Kylo partner up in a never-seen-before combat against the Supreme Leader's goons. The epic fight crowns them victorious, but Rey doesn't have much time to savor it. Kylo, or as she calls him now, Ben, makes it clear to her that he wants to abandon the old ways, all of them. He turns his back on Snoke, Skywalker, the Sith, and the Rebels, and asks Rey to join him and begin a new order. Rey's disappointment is heartbreaking. Kylo appeals to Rey's soft spot, her family's origin and whereabouts. He claims to know where she comes from, and deals her a low blow by stating that, for the entire galaxy, she is as worthless as her parents were, but not to him. To him, she's worth it, strong, and capable of extraordinary things. Well, at least, that's what he tells her. Leia, and the passengers of the Resistance's transports, watch Hux's attacks against Holdo's cruiser. Rey and Kylo arm wrestle for Luke's lightsaber. Rose and Finn's situation worsens every second. Phasma is ready to put them down. Members of the Resistance fear that Admiral Holdo is running away, but Poe Dameron knows better. Like Leia and Holdo herself, he also understands the lines of warfare. Hux couldn't be more desperate to hit Holdo's cruiser. On a heroic move at lightspeed, Admiral Holdo blasts the cruiser against Hux's fleet, and that saves not only the Resistance's exodus, but also Rose and Finn's lives. The stormtroopers are down, but Phasma stands strong and fights Finn. BB-8 also gives a helping hand and distracts her. Phasma is doomed to a brutal fate. Rey and Kylo stand off for Luke's lightsaber ends, as the saber splits in half, and both are tossed away by the violent impact. Hux finds Kylo, and tells him Rey escaped in Snoke's escape craft. Kylo credits Snoke's demise to Rey, and shows Hux who's the boss now. The old and abandoned rebel base in Crate is inhabited by rebels of the Resistance, and they greet Finn, Rose, and BB-8, who finally get back to the base safely. Crate is a white and salted planet that shelters glass like foxes. The First Order arrives in Crate with special and heavy machinery that Finn knows well. The Resistance has to attack at once, before the huge cannon is fired by the First Order's soldiers. The battle for Crate is afoot, and the white planet reveals its red nature underneath the salt. During the furious fight, the Millennium Falcon storms unannounced and takes the battle away from the rebel base, giving Poe and his crew some room to breathe. If they don't destroy that cannon, only a miracle can save Leia and the Resistance. Speaking of saving, Finn is determined to do whatever it takes to destroy Kylo's cannon, but Rose doesn't accept his decision, and saves him. Now, she's the one in trouble. General Leia sends a signal to whoever can save them from devastation, but no one answers her call. When she least expected, a miracle happened. She senses the Force coming closer. It's her dear brother Luke Skywalker that has come to her aid. Before anything else, he apologizes for not being able to save Ben Solo, but Leia knows better. She understands her son's nature. After the deeply emotional apology, Luke marches on toward Kylo Ren's ships and cannon. Kylo recognizes Luke's shape piercing through the wreckage smoke, and orders that every weapon at their disposal should point straight at Luke immediately. Luke stands in front of Kylo's army, unbent. Kylo fires his arsenal, but Luke comes out of that mess untouched. Kylo decides to face his uncle, finally. Poe understands that Luke's move is a way to distract Kylo so the rebels can escape. The Crystal Foxes give them a signal for them to follow. Meanwhile, Rey and Chewbacca navigate the Crate skies looking for them, and they find a lead. The Crystal Critters, Poe, Leia, and the rebels reach the end of the road. The cave has no exit. Thankfully, help is closer than they think. Slowly, the rocks that block their way are lifted by Rey, who has finally mastered the Force, surprising everyone, including her. Back at the gates of the rebel base, Kylo spills out his rage against his uncle, Luke, but Luke understands that, even after all this time, Kylo's reaction is only a product of his pain. The pain of being abandoned by his family, who didn't believe he could resist the dark side of the Force. The last drop for Kylo is hearing from Luke that, despite his rage and attacks against his family, Luke and Han Solo would always be with him. Kylo loses his temper and attacks Luke with his red lightsaber, only to find out that what he sees before him is not his Uncle Luke, but only a projection of Luke Skywalker gives into the Force one last time, to save his sister Leia and the rebellion from being wiped out of the galaxy. He is the only one who could have done this. The Force is still strong with him, so strong that Leia and Rey can sense it. They feel the final moments of the incomparable and resilient Jedi Master Luke Skywalker, who fades away after fulfilling his destiny. Kylo savors the bitter taste of defeat, and sees Rey one more time through their uncanny connection. Rey's complete trust in the Force makes her cut her connection to Kylo at its root. Through lightspeed, General Leia and the few members left of the Resistance fly away, in the hopes of rebuilding the rebellion. Leia and Rey mourn the loss of Luke, but make peace with the fact that he went peacefully. Rey is doubtful that they will be able to rebuild the rebellion, but Leia, as a natural-born leader, assures the young Jedi that they have all they need to get back on their feet. Canto Bight makes its last appearance, with the enslaved children having an emotional storytelling time, hidden in the stables. They tell the tales of the legendary and unforgettable Jedi Master, Luke Skywalker. Their tender moment ends when one of the guards comes in. They have to go back to work, and so does a little boy that carries a unique ring on his finger, a ring that was given to him by a new friend, Rose. This boy accepts the hardships of that reality, but senses that it's only for a short while, as he astoundingly uses the Force to pick up an old broom. He holds that broom as a promise of the future of the Jedi legacy. He has his faith renewed as he sees, for the last time, the rebellion ship in the sky. He knows that it's not the end.